Muriel was there on her bed, and Gretel watched as the evil witch slept. Was this one of the strange vibes Gretel was having? Gretel was still not sure, but something tells her that Muriel may not be as bad as people may say she is. As Gretel found an old chair, she pulled up on a chair to sit down. As soon as the chair squeaked, the sleeping witch slowly rolled over to sit up. Her back was facing Gretel, and as Muriel slowly rubbed her eyes and to wake herself up, she turned around and saw Gretel. She was surprised. "You're awake. I was wondering how long it'd be until..." Gretel was cut off as Muriel's face immediately turned white with black cracks around her face. "Get out!" Muriel screeched, throwing a rock at Gretel, who dodged the throw. "Whoa! I'm not here for trouble," Gretel said, standing up. "Then get out, like I said!" Muriel screamed. "I want to help you. You seem to be lost," Gretel said, drawing her crossbow at Muriel. She hated to do that, but Muriel was threatening her, and she didn't want to start a fight. "I don't want to start a fight. Your brother told me about your past." "Who is he?" Muriel growled, slowly calming down. "Diablo. He and I were here yesterday. We gave your wand and broomstick back. He was one that brought you back to life," Gretel replied. "He did? Well, how do you know about my past? Why did you come here?" Muriel asked. "Diablo wants me to help you, Muriel. He said that you were just evil because you were just a spoiled brat. I hate to say that, but I hope you realize. Look inside yourself, Muriel," Gretel said to the evil witch. "If you want to know, your brother told me everything." "That's BS. There's no way Diablo told you this," Muriel replied while yelling. "He did, Muriel, and I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth. Diablo never lied about anything. He told me everything about you. He told me here yesterday," Gretel replied. Muriel was about to draw her wand at Gretel. "If he did tell you, why didn't he come here then?" Muriel growled. "He's in town with his daughter, and he is busy at the moment. I could bring him here if you want. He can explain everything," Gretel said. "What you did in the past is in the past. Diablo says you can change. You could always change for the better." "What is this to you, Gretel?" Muriel snarled at the question. "Is this a trick? Or something that you could backstab me with within minutes?" "No, Muriel, it's not a trick. I killed you 3 months ago in the past. Diablo knows the events that happened to me and my brother. He wanted you to realize the mistakes you made. He said that you're not as bad as you seem," Gretel reassured her. "Are you sure about that? Why did Diablo bring me back to life?" Muriel demanded. "I would rather be dead. Then I wouldn't be seeing you right now." "Muriel, you have been depressed throughout your life," Gretel said. "Don't deny it. Diablo told me." Muriel sighed, her skin turning back to normal. "I have been depressed. But can you do me a favor and leave?" Muriel asked calmly. "I need some time to myself. Like time to think about this." "Okay, Muriel, I'll leave. But I'm coming back to see you tomorrow. Hopefully you'll have time to think about it," Gretel replied, grabbing her stuff before heading out of the hideout. After Gretel left, Muriel felt a wave of depression hit her. Gretel was right about her. Muriel did become evil, not just over getting what she wanted, but just because she was acting like a spoiled brat. Why did Diablo get what she wanted? I don't, Muriel sighed as she looked at her wand, remembering the times where she and Gretel and Hansel were enemies. Now, of course, Muriel felt so ashamed for what she became. She regretted doing the stuff that she did 3 months ago. Muriel then needed some time to think, as Gretel was really trying to help her. Muriel had time to think before Gretel came back the next day, and it was the day for Muriel to decide. Hansel was sitting beside Mina on the couch. Mina had just woken up from being brought back to life. Mina was groggy at this point, but she looked to see that Hansel was beside her, although she remembers Hansel, but she doesn't remember what happened. "What happened?" Mina asked groggily. "You were killed by Muriel, and once my sister and I killed her, we buried you in the abandoned gingerbread house, and someone brought you back to life," Hansel explained. "And once we brought you back here, I kept an eye on you until you woke up." "I'm glad you were there, Hansel. You always made me feel safe." Mina hugged Hansel close to her. Gretel walked inside the house as she was tired from being up early. When Gretel walked inside, she was stunned to see Mina was awake. "You're awake. I'm glad you're awake," Gretel said. Then she gave Mina a hug. "Gretel, do you know who brought me back to life?" Mina asked. "A friend of mine did, and he has a daughter of his own," Gretel answered, smelling fresh-baked cookies in the kitchen. "Are those cookies I smell?" "Yes, and they're chocolate chip flavor. I baked them," Ben said, showing up with a cup of tea for Hansel and Mina. "They smell good, Ben. How many batches did you make?" Gretel asked. "I made about 4 to 5, enough to last 2 weeks," Ben replied with a laugh. "Or maybe just 1 week, because my sister's a cookie monster for cookies," Hansel chuckled, making Gretel laugh with her brother. "I don't eat them all in one day, Hansel, you know that," Gretel replied with a chuckle. Then she walked towards the kitchen. She pulled out 2 scarves from her jacket pocket. One was going to be for Diablo in Brooklyn, and the other was for Muriel. As Gretel began putting at least 12 cookies in the red scarf for Diablo in Brooklyn, Ben walked up to Gretel, who was behind her. He wrapped his arms around Gretel so that she was startled. She smacked his hands away and looked at him. "What are you doing?" Gretel asked sternly. "Nothing. I was just wondering what you were doing," Ben replied, but Gretel wasn't falling for it. "You had your hands around me. What was that about?" Gretel asked again. "I was just hugging you from behind. Like, does that make you feel uncomfortable?" Ben asked her. "No, I just didn't know what you were doing. I'm giving 1 scarf of cookies for Diablo in Brooklyn, and they're both for them," Gretel replied. She did not want Ben or Mina to know that Muriel was alive, nor that Mina needed to know about Diablo in Brooklyn. After all, Mina had just woken up from the dead after the Blood Moon events 3 months ago. "That's very nice of you to do that." "Well, I can make more cookies whenever you like," Ben offered. Gretel smiled and nodded as she smiled at Ben. Once Gretel packed 1 scarf for Diablo in Brooklyn, she packed the other cookies into a blue scarf for Muriel. Hansel then walked into the kitchen, wondering what the scarf of cookies were for. Ben then saw Edward outside, and the troll motioned them to help bring dinner in the house. "Edward wants my help. I'll be back in a few minutes," Ben said. As soon as he left the kitchen, Hansel and Gretel were both alone. "Did you see Muriel today?" Hansel asked his sister. "Yes, and she was very hostile when she saw me," Gretel replied. She then tied the scarves up and one set aside for Muriel. I did tell her about what Diablo said, and she said that she'll think about it. She may have done evil things in the past, but she has the opportunity to change. I may not like the idea of what you're doing, Gretel, but I think she'll come around. I just know she will. But are you going to tell Mina about..." But before Hansel could finish, Gretel then shot at him an angry glare at her brother. "I don't need you telling Mina, not now. Not now anyway," Gretel replied. "I don't want her to worry. She's just brought back to life by her brother, and I need her to feel relaxed and comfortable. I am seeing Muriel tomorrow, though." "I understand, sis, and I see. Tomorrow I'll be spending time with Mina, so you could see Muriel at that time," Hansel said to his sister. Later on at night, Gretel was getting ready for bed when she wanted to leave in the morning to see Diablo in Brooklyn, to drop off a scarf of cookies for them, and going to see Muriel at her hideout. Gretel didn't want Mina to know that Muriel was back, as Mina would have paranoia over the fact that Muriel was back. As Gretel laid in bed, she was thinking of what Diablo said. Sure, Muriel might have been hostile at first, but within a while, Gretel will eventually get to know her, and hopefully Muriel sees how much she can change, and not just for Gretel, but for the greater good. Gretel eventually fell asleep, wondering what the next day will bring her. As the clock struck 7 a.m., the markets were just about to beginning to open up when Gretel got up. She got dressed and brushed her hair. Once she was decently ready to head out, she grabbed a bag of coins along with 2 scarves before heading downstairs. As she got downstairs, Mina was still asleep on the couch, so Gretel took some cookies for herself to eat when she got to Muriel's. Gretel then walked slowly out the door, closing it without any loud bangs to distract any attention. Gretel decided to visit the stable on her way out to feed the animals there and to make sure Edward had something to eat. As Gretel was getting a saddle and bridle for the trip, she then looked at the bay mare in one of the stalls. Gretel was going to ride horseback to Muriel's hideout, hoping that Muriel wouldn't eat the horse. Gretel then grabbed a grooming kit for the horses and groomed the horse. After she groomed the mare nuzzled at Gretel's face. The mare's name was Secret, and she was a Dutch warmblood. "Well, Secret, we're gonna go on a ride today somewhere," Gretel said to her horse. She saddled up her horse that was attached to some of the bags on the saddle. Once the bags were attached, Gretel then put 2 scarves in a bag and bridled the horse. Once she was gone, She made sure everything was secure before getting on. As Gretel left the stable, she got onto a mounting block and jumped on. Once she was on her horse, she started walking the horse out of Augsburg. On the way out, she stopped at the market to pick up some milk for her trip. She stopped the horse in front of the market. A farmer was delivering milk to a market in Augsburg. "Hello there, Sheriff. Is there something you need?" the farmer asked. "Yes, I do, actually," Gretel replied. "I would like 4 bottles of milk today." "Of course, my dear. Let me get that." The farmer handed 4 bottles of milk to Gretel. The sheriff paid for the milk before heading out of town. As Gretel was riding her horse in the forest, she spotted something flying in the trees. Her horse was nervous while Gretel was eyeing at the flying figure and wondered if it was Muriel. Gretel got her horse to gallop through the forest, following the figure through the flying in the trees. As if they were galloping in the forest, they slowed down as they came across Hansel and Gretel's old house. Diablo landed on the ground with her broomstick. Brooklyn was the one flying in it. Diablo walked out the door to see his daughter was home. "So that flying figure was Brooklyn?" thought Gretel, as she smiled at Brooklyn, who took notice of her presence. "Daddy, Gretel is here on a horse," Brooklyn said, catching Diablo's attention. "Good morning, Gretel. What brings you here today?" Diablo asked. "Well, Diablo, I brought you a scarf of cookies for you to share," Gretel said, jumping off of her horse and taking the red scarf with 2 bottles of milk. "That's very kind of you, Gretel. How many cookies are in the scarf?" Diablo asked, as Gretel handed him the scarf of cookies. 12 in total, 6 for you and 6 for Brooklyn," Gretel replied, smiling at the warlock and at his daughter. "I decided to do something nice for you. You've done a lot for me and my brother." "Mind if I ask, has Mina woken up yet?" Diablo asked. "Yes, she woke up yesterday after I visited your sister," Gretel said. "I did talk to her, and she was hostile towards me at first. But after I told her what you told me, she wanted to be alone to think about it, so I left her alone. I did say to her that I'll be back today, just I hope she had time to think. So maybe I could start off by building a friendship between me and her." "Well, Dad, you tell her about my niece at some point?" My daughter at some point as her niece. "Once you do, and she start to get along, basically," Diablo said. "Of course, Diablo. She didn't try to kill me, thank God," Gretel said, as Brooklyn handed Gretel a picture she drew with crayons. "What's this?" Gretel asked Brooklyn. "A drawing I made," Brooklyn replied. Gretel then had time to look at the picture that the young witch drew. It was Gretel with Diablo and Brooklyn. It made Gretel smile, remembering the drawings she did when she was younger, and she couldn't be even more happier than the young witch was. "Thanks, Brooklyn. This is a nice drawing," Gretel said as she hugged Brooklyn. She loved Brooklyn just as much as Diablo does. Brooklyn even showed Gretel the toys she played with. Gretel remembered playing with her toys as a little girl, and Brooklyn was making her smile. As soon as Gretel jumped back on her horse, Diablo walked up to her. "Thanks for paying a visit today, Gretel," Diablo said to Gretel. "You did me and Hansel favors. Now I decide to return the favor," Gretel replied, as she started to walk on her way on her horse, and then she turned her attention to Diablo. "I'll just let you know how Muriel is doing," Gretel said, noticing before trotting off into the woods. When Gretel got to the mountains, she parked her horse in front of the entrance to Muriel's hideout. She tried to tie Secret up to a tree with a strong branch. Secret was near the water toe with a patch of grass, so Gretel couldn't see Muriel outside, so she assumed that Muriel was inside. Gretel grabbed a blue scarf of cookies for Muriel and 2 glasses of milk of bottles. Gretel then pulled off some cookies for herself. Of course, when Gretel walked inside the hideout, she looked to see Muriel on the couch. Her head was facing down. Gretel walked over to the evil witch and sat beside her. Muriel then looked at Gretel. "You okay?" Gretel asked. "Yeah, I'm fine," Muriel insisted. "You had time to think about what I said yesterday?" Gretel asked her. She then placed a blue scarf with chocolate chip cookies inside. "I made some cookies yesterday and brought a bottle of milk to go with them." "I don't even like milk or cookies," Muriel calmly replied. "Have you even tried them?" Gretel asked, only for Muriel to look away. "Not even once? Not once. I've never tried milk or cookies in my entire life," Muriel answered. "I even ate in my life was blood and children." "Well, Muriel, I think it's time we try something new for a change. Diablo wants you to realize that you could change your ways. Hansel and I won't hurt you," Gretel said. She handed Muriel a bottle of milk. "Well, what if I don't like it?" Muriel asked. Well, trust me, Muriel, you'll like milk and cookies, and they taste better than children and blood. Have a sip and bite, Gretel encouraged her. Muriel then took a sip of the milk from the bottle. Once she had a sip, she and Gretel was right about trying the milk. Hey, this is actually pretty good. I like milk now, Muriel replied. Then she had a bite of one of her cookies that Gretel made. Muriel then liked the taste of chocolate chip cookies, and Gretel was right. Hey, I like cookies as well. See, I knew you would like the milk and cookies, Gretel said, munching on the cookies. I still need some time to think about what you said, and I am thinking about changing for the greater good, Muriel began to explain. I know I was evil 3 months ago, but a part of me wants to change, but a part of me wants to rip out your throat. Gretel understood what Muriel was saying. She did try to kill her 3 months ago. With Augsburg now in the hands of Hansel and Gretel, the townspeople have been safe since then. However, Muriel decided to realize that she could be a better person. I understand you still hate me, Muriel, but you could take as much time as you need, Gretel replied. Muriel then looked up at Gretel. Diablo did say that Muriel used to be innocent as an innocent witch as a child, but ever since she got older, she was mad at the fact that she couldn't get what her older brother got. So you're not going to kill me again? Muriel asked the sheriff. No, not this time. I have no intention in doing so. Diablo wouldn't want that. But back 3 months ago, my brother and I had no other choice, Gretel answered. I just wanted you to get to know you more, like as a friend. Are you sure about that? Muriel asked. Wasn't sure if Gretel was going to backstab her eventually. Muriel wasn't sure if accepting Gretel as a friend was a good idea, but she decided that she'll take the chance. As Gretel and Muriel were having their milk and cookies, it was around noon where Gretel decided to head back. It was nice hanging with you, Muriel. You're not as bad as people say you were back then, Gretel said. Muriel then looked up at Gretel. Once you get to know me, I'm not as bad as you may think, Muriel replied. Gretel was just silent. You find me a bit terrifying with my face going white with cracks on it, do you? Muriel asked. Gretel didn't know what to think. She fought scary witches before, and when she was little, the candy witch did try to feed Hansel too much candy as a kid, to try to eat him. But what was Gretel to say? She didn't care about what Muriel looked like, even though evil witches are scary, but not all witches are bad. Maybe Muriel would change from evil to decent, good witch? All the questions were in Gretel's mind. She then pushed it back to the back of her mind. You're not scary to me, Gretel replied. A lot of people find my evil side terrifying, but my good side is innocent enough, Muriel stated. You didn't change one bit. Well, besides that, you're the new sheriff, that is. Yeah, but I can help you change for the greater good, Gretel reassured her. Diablo wants me to check on you, just to see if you were okay. You could tell him that I'm fine, but I don't think he'll want to see me, Muriel sighed. Why not? Gretel asked. He's your brother, like Hansel is my brother. Well, since your sisters and friends were killed 3 months ago, is Diablo all the family you have left? My brother is all I have left. My mother was burned by the people of Townsburg when I was, just a baby or child. I had to lose connection with her. I barely knew her, though, and my brother was my second closest, Muriel sighed, not wanting to hide away from Gretel. I know your father wasn't nice to you, and I heard that you and him didn't get along. Diablo told me, and you needed someone as a girl to talk to. That's why I'm here. I'm going to keep coming here to your hideout. Diablo wants me to make sure you're doing okay, Gretel said. My father used to drink a lot, and when he did, he messed me up verbally and emotionally, Muriel replied. Deep down in my heart, even before the events 3 months ago, I wanted to die. Gretel couldn't believe her eyes. Muriel was depressed to the point where she wanted to die? Gretel hated the fact that Muriel wanted to die, even though if she killed her former enemy 3 months ago. But Gretel didn't wish death on Muriel, not after what she just heard. Why didn't you want to end yourself? Gretel asked the evil witch. Because when I became evil, I regret doing the things I did. I only not just hurt people. I did more than that. I even did it to myself, Muriel replied. We're going to change that. I'm gonna come here and visit you as much as you want me to, Gretel offered. Okay, Muriel muttered. Gretel can then still hear Muriel muttering under her breath. Will you come here tomorrow sometime? Of course, Gretel replied. I could come here tomorrow. Will you be okay when I leave? I think so. I think I'll be okay, Muriel said. Gretel finished her glass of milk and cookies that she packed, and she was about to leave the hideout when Muriel called out to Gretel. Can you bring me more cookies and milk tomorrow? Muriel asked. Sure, and I'll be visiting you for a long time until you are a better person, Gretel replied. She then walked over to her house and untied her horse and jumped on the saddle. Once she was on her horse, she galloped through the forest. When she got to the swampy bog near the forest, she saw a swamp witch tangled in vines. Gretel could see that Hansel and Edward trapped the swamp witch, and they were about to kill it when they saw Gretel. The sheriff jumped off of her horse and drew a crossbow at the swamp witch. She then shot the arrows at the witch. Glad you showed up, Hansel said to Gretel. We just captured a swamp witch while you were gone, and she stole an animal. Wow, I was expecting a child, but an animal? What did she take? Gretel asked. Edward then showed Gretel a small puppy in his hands. A puppy she took, Edward replied. Of course, Gretel looked at the puppy in her arms. Well, what a cute little pup guy he is. Why would a witch take a small pupper? Gretel asked as the puppy licked Gretel's face, making the sheriff smile. He likes you, sis. This puppy belonged to a family of 2 children, Hansel replied, petting the puppy as they were getting a cart loaded with corpses of the swamp witch. Now, once the trio headed back home from being out most of the day, the swamp witch was burned and Hansel and Gretel collected their rewards. The puppy was safely returned to its owners, with the reward was around 300,000 pounds given by the miller. The puppy belonged to the miller and his family, and was so happy that the witch hunters found the puppy. When they returned home, Gretel made sure that the animals were fed and in their pens, and made sure Edward had something to eat. Once the task was finished, Gretel headed back inside to find Ben near her desk. He was smiling at her. To Gretel, she found it a bit weird for Ben. But what was he smiling about? Was he happy to see Gretel? Gretel wasn't sure what to think of it, so she just walked over to her desk and sat down. Welcome back, Sheriff. The town was overjoyed when you killed that swamp witch, Ben said cheerfully. Yeah, we sure did, Gretel replied, sounding a bit dead inside at this point, confusing Ben. Why does your voice sound dead? Ben asked. Oh, I'm just tired from a busy morning, Gretel replied. Why are you so cheery when I walked in? I was just happy that you're back, Ben answered. You're like almost gone for almost all day, and I don't see you. I just go out and do stuff, Ben. As a sheriff of Augsburg, I've got my duties, Gretel said. When she saw Mina sitting on Hansel's big chair in the sitting room, she looked up. Hey, Gretel, where have you been all day? Mina asked. Oh, I've been on horseback going on a few trails in the forest, Gretel replied, sitting down on her favorite chair. I decided to write secret as she hadn't been ridden in a few days. Do you know who brought me back to life? Mina asked, not remembering much of the event that happened 3 months ago. I remember dying in Hansel's arms after Mina stabbed me. Well, Muriel did. A friend of mine brought you back to life, and he did say you were going to be unconscious for a few hours to a day, Gretel answered Mina's question. And Hansel was the new mayor while I'm the new sheriff, and we're going to do a better job than they did. Lucky you and Hansel at least have me safe to be with you and Edward through the troll, and Ben, of course, Mina said. Hansel walked in the sitting room to see Gretel and Mina talking. Nice to see you ladies here, Hansel piped in, making the girls giggle. You were only gossiping about me? No, we really weren't. Really. Gretel grinned like an idiot, but laughed. Hey, I was only teasing, Hansel replied. He then turned his attention to Mina. Are you feeling okay? Yeah, I'm fine, Hansel. It was nice of Gretel's friend to revive me back to health. I wonder who it was, Mina wondered. But Gretel didn't want to tell Mina that Diablo was Muriel's brother. Not only that, she didn't want to freak Mina out as she was trying to be friends with Muriel. Well, maybe you'll see him someday. Who knows, Gretel said. Or maybe a ghost did? Or a mage? Mina asked. No one knows, Mina. My sister and I found you unconscious when you were brought back to life, Hansel answered as Gretel started to read a chapter book when Ben appeared beside her. Hey, Gretel, I brought you some flowers, Ben offered as Gretel took the flowers from Ben. Well, that's thoughtful, Ben, Gretel replied. What's the occasion for? Oh, that? Ben asked, scratching the back of his head. Oh, I just wanted to give you as a gift for being with us. Well, thanks, Ben. I never expected flowers from anyone, Gretel replied. Then she got up and headed downstairs to her bedroom. Ben was confused as why Gretel was walking away from him. Was it the flowers? Ben didn't know what to do. He just stared at Hansel and Mina awkwardly. What's with Gretel? Ben asked. Hansel and Mina. Every time I try to talk to her, she always run away from me like she's always going upstairs to her room all the time. Do you think something's bothering Gretel? Mina asked. If so, maybe you could talk to her, Mina suggested Hansel. Since I'm her brother, she'll tell me everything. Well, almost everything. But we'll talk to her then, Hansel replied. Can I go with you? Ben asked. I want to talk to her too. Ben, if Gretel wants to be alone, you gotta respect the fact that she wants to be alone. And second, it's best if I talk to her. I know my sister a lot more, Hansel replied. Ben nodded sadly and then went back into the sitting room with Mina. While Gretel was pacing around the room, she was muttering something under her breath. It was only she could hear herself, not anyone else, of what she was saying herself, and no one knows. Well, I like Muriel and Ben, but what do I choose? Gretel muttered to herself as she heard a knock on the door. Come in, Gretel said as Hansel opened the door to walk in, closing the door behind him. Hey sis, Ben wants to know that you're always running away from him, Hansel said. It's nothing against you or anything, he's just wondering. Do you promise not to tell him or Mina about it? Gretel asked sternly towards her brother. I promise, sis, Hansel replied as Gretel took a deep breath before speaking. I'm not sure what to think about this, but I find Ben has a crush on me, Gretel said. And don't get me wrong, I like Ben, but I don't see him as more than just a friend.